Russia's new leadership has intensified hostilities in Chechnya. Moscow claims to have made inroads against rebel positions in the south, and it's accusing Chechen fighters of using poison gas. Our Moscow correspondent Andrew Harding reports.
Russian soldiers shout out Happy New Year as they send another shell hurtling into Grozny. It's a new millennium, but the same old savage war in Chechnya. There's not much to celebrate here. These young Russian conscripts are taking heavy losses as they try to seize the Chechen capital. Russian guns are pounding the city with growing ferocity and frustration. The Chechen rebels are heavily outnumbered, but they're well armed and well dug in, and they seem to be holding their ground. Today, Russian troops scrambled to put on masks as Moscow accused the Chechen rebels of releasing a cloud of toxic gas. This war is becoming uglier by the day. Both sides are losing men, but it's the civilian population which continues to suffer the most. This family is burying an 11-year-old girl killed by a Russian bomb. International appeals for a ceasefire are still falling on deaf ears. Boris Yeltsin may no longer be in power here, but that won't affect Russia's military campaign. If anything, the new acting president, Vladimir Putin, will take an even tougher line than before. Tens of thousands of civilians trapped in the war zone are facing a bleak new year. Andrew Harding, BBC News, Moscow.
The birth of Samir Saleh Abdullah al-Suwailem in the city of Arad, Saudi Arabia, fell on the calendar date of April 14, 1969. He would otherwise be known as Ibn al-Khattab. Khattab in the Arabic is known as sermon. Arad is known for its fertile lands, and many traditional servants of Sunni Islam are here. Camel and sheep herding are the primary occupations. According to an interview with Arab News in 2002, Mansour Al-Suwailem, the eldest brother to Samir, states that the name Ibn al-Khattab is derived from Samir's appreciation for Umar Ibn al-Khattab, one of the earliest companions of the Prophet Muhammad in the Quran. Umar is most powerful and influential Muslim caliph in history, and one of the leading Islamic jurists who helped expand the Islamic Caliphate in 632. Mansour would go on and admit his brother Samir would have great visions of the future, which included being as pious and oriented as Umar. Outside of Mansour's interview in 2002, there is little to no information regarding Ibn Khattab's early life. It's only from the advent of the First Chechnyan War that we begin to understand who Samir Saleh Abdullah al-Suwailem, Ibn al-Khattab, really is. His place of birth, Arad, is also something of an anomaly. In 1951, after the construction of the Aramco pipeline, the city began producing natural oil for the United States at a reasonable price per gallon. The city began experiencing human population growth as work began to import foreigners from abroad, as well as the natives from the eastern provinces such as Al-Hassa, Yanbu, and Al-Waj. His father, Salah bin Abdullah al-Suwailem, and mother, Rasmiya al-Muhtadi, were financially advanced and also rather ultra-Orthodox in their faith, which was a strict adherence to the Wahhabi sect. Ibn al-Khattab began interest in visiting the United States to study abroad, but that idea derailed, and it came from a TV screen from Afghan news. According to Mansour, Khattab had watched young Chechen Muslims marching through the gritty mud streets to defend the invasion of the Soviets. Wrapped around their foreheads were headbands with scriptures, "No God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger," in Arabic. The jihad of Muslims against the secular invaders once again have visited the Islamic Ummah, and Khattab began his newfound journey. He dedicated his life to the cause. One problem, however, how to get there. Umar's embracing Islam was our victory. His migration to Medina was our success, and his reign a blessing from Allah. We didn't offer prayers in Haram Mosque until Umar had accepted Islam. When he accepted Islam, the Quraysh were compelled to let us pray in the mosque. Abdullah bin Masud, one of the earliest companions to the Prophet Muhammad. Khattab began his journey to Afghanistan first in 1988. It was here he witnessed the true calling of jihad. Through the influence of the venerable jihadist Abdullah Azam in Pakistan, he integrated and trained with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. A letter of recommendation from the Maktab al-Kidmat in Dal Naman, Saudi Arabia, was delivered to the Mujahid in Afghanistan. Khattab's connection with his mother was reflective of his nature. He would later write in his journals that a jihad cannot forget the connection to family. He wrote, "The biggest obstacle that stands between us and jihad is family. We have carried out jihad without the approval of our families. If we obey their instructions and return to our homelands, who would carry on this burden and continue al-dawah? Every time I talk to my mother on the phone, she asks me, 'When will you return home, my son?' But if I return to be with my mother, whom I haven't seen for more than 12 years, who would continue the journey that we have started?" The jihad continued forward. With his military training complete, he traveled to Jalalabad, Afghanistan. He began to become noticed by military commanders there, and his ferocious dedication to coordination were notable qualities most jihadists found appealing. Khattab began coordinating young Saudis and constructed his own brigade called Artillery Company in Jalalabad. This company was detached from another formidable commander there, Osama bin Laden. Both would become acquainted in short order. Much like Ibn Khattab's primary source of inspiration, Umar ibn al-Khattab also coordinated with another major caliph in Abu Bakr to deter the Roman and Persian forces. Umar would mostly adopt a policy of avoiding wars and consolidating his power in the incorporated lands rather than expanding his empire through continuous warfare. This strategy was adopted similarly to Ibn Khattab later. However, Khattab was not fond of Afghanistan. There were too many political disagreements between warlords like Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, Abdul Rasul Sayyaf, and Ahmad Shah Massoud. He received a letter from Fathi Abu Sayyaf, a Chechen of Jordanian origin. In the letter, Fathi described about another jihad, where the country of Chechnya was unlike any other. In the letter, where Khattab noticed much, was poignant to this unrelenting thirst for jihad. A man who enters it is lost, and one who gets out of it is like a reborn. Khattab's army had grown into 160 men. His attachment was basically to dissuade from having other Afghan camps from having any animosity with Samirs. Thus, he established close link with Abdullah Nuri, the head of Hezb-e-Nazad and one of the leaders of the Tajik opposition. It seemed that Ibn Khattab was concerned about compromising the quality of his jihad in Tajikistan. And it was here he decided to break free and join the jihad in Chechnya. His group relocated and surveyed the situation in the embattled country, where Khattab disguised himself as a TV reporter and began interviewing Chechen commanders and employments there. He carried his camera around with him and talked to people he met, including Shamil Bayesev, a field commander in the Chechen insurgency who became deputy prime minister of Chechnya in Mashkadov's government later. According to Mansour, Khattab was a simple interview with a native Chechen, which completely persuaded his dedication to the conflict. He met an old Chechen woman who stressed the need for jihad against the Russians. She told him confidently, "We want them to quit our land so that we could return to Islam." When he asked her how she would go help in a jihad against Russians, her reply was that she possessed only a jacket and she would donate it for the cause of Allah. Khattab was overwhelmed by the simple insistence to give the jihadists the only garment in the cold damp environments she lived in that gave his full dedication to the jihad in Chechnya. He began having close associations with a number of commanders there, including one notable commander, Shamil Bayasev, a field commander in the southern Caucasus Mountains. Bayasev's ruthless reputation gained notoriety. He became well revered among his peers and became the highest ranking Chechen military commander and was considered the undisputed leader of the Chechen insurgency. It was intertwined with Khattab's theology, which was Wahhabi Islam, in which he also believed the objective of jihad should be the establishment of the religion of Allah, where there is no negotiation with the enemy. The letter was sent by Fathi, in which he gave his prediction to Khattab that turned out to be correct, that Khattab would spend the rest of his life fighting in the country which would reborn Khattab. Khattab and Bayasev's joint invasion of Dagestan in the summer of 1999 gave Russia the excuse to invade Chechnya for the second time, this time to some rather morbidly disastrous human casualties. Some were even more pronounced, including one infamous incident which was entitled the Dagestan Massacre, which is still viewable in the darkest parts of the internet, that included young Russian conscripts captured and beheaded one by one. This was where Khattab detached himself from his pious influence in Umar Ibn al-Khattab, in which Umar once has, according to Abu Bakr, Umar's strictness was there because of my softness. When the weight of the caliphate will be over his shoulders, he will remain no longer strict. If I will be asked by God to whom I have appointed my successor, I will tell him that I have appointed the best man among your men. Khattab's ruthlessness against even civilian Uzbeks, Tajiks, and other liberal Muslims were noticed. Between September 4th to 16th, a series of bombings occurred in the Russian cities of Buyansk, Moscow, and Volgodesnik. A total of 4 apartment blocks, killing more than 300, injuring more than 1,000. The Federal Society Bureau of the Russian Federation had investigated the bombings, in which led them back to one name, Ibn Khattab. However, Ibn Khattab publicly denounced the bombings, even suggesting to the media that we would not like to be akin to those who kill sleeping civilians with bombs and shells. He would also condemn the ignorance on the matter of the Jews in Palestine. He would say, we live a jihadi experience, and we are engaged in a fierce fight against Russian forces who by far outnumber the Israeli army and are better equipped. We will never forget our brothers in Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is our primary case, and the Mujahideen have initiated practical steps to carry out operations against the Jews. The Jews exist everywhere, and to hit them, we do not necessarily have to march into them and hit them inside Palestine. As soon as the Russian planes bombed Dagestan, the Second Chechnya War had begun, in the still fresh memories of the first conflict. This came when Vladimir Putin declared the Chechen presidency and parliament of Aslan Mashakadov illegitimate. Ibn Khattab took over the leadership of the Arab Mujahideen in Chechnya by then. Some of al-Qaeda's fighters had started infiltrating the Chechen conflict with the full approval of Ibn Khattab himself, but found that many of the al-Qaeda Arabs were ill-equipped in military guerrilla training and asked them to return back to Pakistan. One notable name, Zacarias Moussaoui, was known to Ibn Khattab. Bin Laden's connection to Khattab was solid for the rest of Ibn Khattab's life. And according to the 9/11 Commission report, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi traveled to Chechnya and may have met with Ibn Khattab's forces. According to Richard Clark, former counterterrorism czar to both Clinton and Bush, continued funding of Ibn Khattab's forces in Chechnya from bin Laden was through al-Qaeda couriers who met with the venerable leader. However, unlike the first conflict, the Soviets began regaining ground. Russian forces seized the last populated centers of the organized resistance and also displaced the tattered Chechen forces with constant bombarding the small, dense pockets of resistance in the southern parts of the country. Many of the Chechen Mujahideen groups led to the Caucasus Mountains, and here they tried to regroup for one final battle. Khattab began writing letters back to Afghanistan for help with the resurgence. The Russian secret police, meanwhile, were obtaining personal information of the whereabouts of Khattab himself. They thought that maybe they could bomb the area where he was being hidden, that they could deal a death blow to the guerrillas and put the end to the conflict finally. Meanwhile, Ibn Khattab's confidant, Bayasev, had eluded Russian capture together with other Chechens by hiding in forests and mountains. He welcomed assistance from warfighters from Afghanistan and other Islamic countries, encouraging them to join the Chechen cause. Bayasev was far more cunning than Ibn Khattab, who embraced to become a martyr in the conflict, even as far back as 14 years when he first entered it. The Russian military completely saturated the southern mountains with aerial assaults and formed a massive contingent, which battled ferociously with Ibn Khattab forces, which even in his final inscription in his journal admitted that the Russian forces were more dedicated than previous engagements. He would write, "We never experienced such bravery by the Russians. The brothers kept bringing in to an injured brother to treat as or a martyr to bury. We could not bury martyrs properly because we didn't have digging equipment, so we dug holes with knives to bury the martyrs." Khattab related that when the Russians discovered their location, the planes began to pound the ground and burn it. Then they bombed us with rockets. I said to myself, if half of the Mujahideen were killed and the other half is saved, it will be an acceptable percentage for us. It was a miracle that we were able to survive with only 50 martyrs and 100 injured. The Russians were far more dedicated than what Ibn Khattab led himself to believe. For over a year, the Russian secret police had two of their own Ibn Khattab's contingent. Abu al-Walid al-Ghamdi was one of Ibn Khattab's top lieutenants and the ultimate successor to Khattab as commander. Even suggested to the Chechen leader that one notable member was rather suspicious. He said, many of the brothers were suspicious and warned Khattab about dealing with this guy, suspecting him to be part of the Russian intelligence. At the beginning, Khattab himself was cautious when dealing with both of them, as he rarely met with them. When he had to, he used to deal with them far from his original location. On March 20th, 2002, Ibn Khattab was still waiting for letters from Afghanistan. The assistance from abroad was desperately needed. That help would never come. According to the testimony of Abu al-Walid al-Ghamdi, the death of Ibn Khattab came in a rather unusual method. He said, they dipped one of the Arabic language letters, which was sent to Khattab by one of the brothers from one of the surrounding countries, in a deadly poison. They gave it, along it with other letters and items, to Khattab's personal guards and told them of the existence of very important letters that should be delivered to Khattab as quickly as possible. Khattab opened the letter and started reading it while he was eating. A few minutes later, he felt dizzy and nauseous and went to bed. When he woke up for the morning prayer, he could barely breathe, and soon after, he went into a coma. The doctor came quickly and realized from the symptoms, he saw that Khattab was poisoned. The death of Samir Saleh Abdullah al-Suwailem, Ibn Khattab, was once predicted by the man himself in a previous inscription in his journal before he entered the Chechen jihad. He wrote, a drop of poison could make you fall down, unable to do anything. He would meet a fate almost similar to the primary influence, Umar ibn Khattab. Umar was also assassinated, but not from a foreign enemy, but instead by a Persian, Piruj Nahavandi. Stabbed 6 times, the assassin became a heroic figure to the Shia faithful. The day of Umar's assassination and the glorification of Nahavandi is still celebrated in remote Iranian villages and was previously celebrated in major Iranian cities. Not so for Ibn Khattab, who remained shrouded in mystery. Even from Vladimir Putin himself, who commented shortly after Ibn Khattab's death. I wish and want to believe that Ibn Khattab was really liquidated. If he has indeed been eliminated, it would be another blow to terrorism.